Admiral Veltar stood on the bridge of his massive warship, watching the screens with cold yellow eyes. His reptilian skin gleamed under the bright lights as he studied the strange object moving through space. The ship was small and looked very different from anything in the Empire's database. "What is that thing?" he asked his communications officer. "Unknown vessel, Admiral. It came from the outer rim where no civilized species live. Our computers cannot identify its design or technology." Veltar's long tail moved with annoyance. For 3,000 years, the Galactic Empire had ruled over thousands of worlds. Every species they met either joined willingly or got conquered. This was how things worked. There were no surprises anymore. The strange ship was called the New Soul. Inside, Captain Hyunwoo looked at his small crew with worry. They had traveled farther from Earth than any human before. This was supposed to be a peaceful mission to explore space and maybe find friendly aliens. "Captain, we're getting signals from multiple ships," said So-min from her position at the navigation controls. "There are a lot of them." Hyunwoo nodded. "Can we talk to them?" Tae-ho, the chief engineer, worked quickly at his station. "I'm trying to set up communication, but their technology is very advanced. Give me a few minutes." On the Imperial flagship, the translator computer was having problems. Human languages were completely new to it. When Captain Hyunwoo finally managed to send a message, the computer tried its best to translate. "Greetings. We come in peace from Earth. We seek friendship and knowledge." But the Imperial computer translated this as something very different. To Admiral Veltar, the message sounded like a territorial challenge. The computer told him the humans were claiming this space as their own and demanding the Empire leave. Veltar's eyes narrowed. "How dare they threaten the Empire? These primitives think they can challenge us?" He turned to his weapons officer. "Prepare to disable their ship. We will teach them proper respect." Captain Hyunwoo saw the massive alien ships moving closer. There were dozens of them, each one bigger than his entire vessel. His heart sank as he realized this first contact was going very wrong. "They're powering weapons," Tae-ho reported, his voice tight with fear. "Try to explain again," Hyunwoo ordered. "Tell them we mean no harm." So-min worked frantically at her controls. "I'm sending every peaceful greeting we have in our database. Maybe one will work." But it was too late. The Imperial ships fired energy beams that struck the New Soul. The human ship shook violently as its systems failed one by one. Sparks flew from broken panels, and the lights flickered. "Hull breach on Deck 3, Tae-ho called out. "Life support is failing." Admiral Veltar watched as the alien ship went dark. "That was easier than expected. Prepare a boarding party. We need to learn about these creatures before we conquer their homeworld." As Imperial soldiers prepared to board the damaged human ship, So-min made a desperate decision. With the last power in her navigation system, she activated the ship's emergency beacon. All the data they had collected about the Empire's ships and weapons got compressed into a tight beam transmission. "Message sent," she whispered to Captain Hyunwoo. "Earth will know what happened here." The transmission raced through space at incredible speed, carrying everything the New Soul had learned about Imperial technology, ship designs, and weapons. It would take months to reach Earth. But when it did, humanity would know they were not alone in the universe. They would also know that the aliens they had found were not friendly. Captain Hyunwoo and his crew were taken prisoner when the Imperial soldiers boarded their ship. The aliens were tall and covered in scales with sharp teeth and claws. They moved with the confidence of a species that had never lost a battle. The humans were brought to the Imperial flagship and placed in a holding cell. Admiral Veltar came. to look at them with curiosity. He had conquered many species, but these creatures looked weak and soft. Their skin had no scales or armor, and they seemed fragile. "Tell me about your homeworld," Veltar demanded through the translator. Captain Hyunwoo looked at the alien commander with calm eyes. "Earth is a peaceful planet. We have no interest in war." The translator computer still struggled with human speech. It told Veltar that the humans were boasting about their planet's military strength and threatening to destroy the Empire. Veltar laughed, a harsh sound that echoed in the metal corridor. "Your arrogance will be your downfall. The Empire has crushed 1,000 worlds. Yours will be no different." As the Imperial fleet prepared to travel to Earth, none of them realized what had really happened. The humans had not threatened them. The translation errors had turned a peaceful first contact into a declaration of war. Far away in space, So Min's message traveled toward Earth. It carried detailed scans of Imperial ships, weapons, and technology. More importantly, it carried a warning that humanity was about to face its greatest challenge. On Earth, people lived normal lives with no idea that aliens existed. Scientists looked at the stars and wondered if anyone was out there. Military leaders planned for conflicts with other humans, never imagining they would soon face an enemy from another world. The data from the new Sol would change everything. When it arrived, humanity would have only months to prepare for a war they never wanted against an enemy they had never imagined. Admiral Veltar set course for the coordinates his computers had pulled from the human ship's navigation system. The Empire had found another world to conquer. He expected it to be as easy as all the others. He was wrong. The new Sol had been humanity's first step into the galaxy. It was supposed to be a mission of peace and discovery. Instead, it became the spark that would ignite the greatest war the galaxy had ever seen. As the Imperial fleet jumped to hyperspace, Captain Hyunwoo sat in his cell and wondered if his people would be ready for what was coming. He thought about his family on Earth and hoped they would survive what he had accidentally started. The first contact between humanity and the Galactic Empire was over. The real story was just beginning. 6 months later, the largest military fleet in galactic history dropped out of hyperspace near a small blue planet. Fleet Admiral Zefrock commanded 500 warships, each one capable of destroying cities. This was more firepower than most species had ever seen in one place. "So this is Earth," Zefrock said, looking at the planet on his main screen. It looked peaceful and quiet, with white clouds swirling over blue oceans. "Scan for defensive positions." His sensor officer worked quickly. "Admiral, I'm detecting some orbital platforms around the planet. They appear to be newly built. The technology looks familiar." Zefrock studied the readings with interest. The platforms used energy signatures that looked like Imperial designs, but something was different about them. How could primitives build anything that resembles our technology? On Earth, Dr. Jin-A stood in the command center deep under the Korean mountains. Around her, dozens of scientists and military officers watched screens showing the massive alien fleet. Everyone knew this day would come, but seeing it still sent chills down their spines. "All defense platforms are online," reported Dong Min from his engineering station. "The modified shield generators are ready." Jin-A nodded calmly, though her heart was racing. For 6 months, the entire planet had worked together like never before. The data from the new Sol had given them a head start, but it still seemed impossible that they could fight such a powerful enemy. "Remember," she said to her team, "we don't need to win this battle. We just need to survive long enough to learn more about them." The first Imperial attack came without warning. Hundreds of energy beams struck Earth's defense platforms. Zephrok expected to see them explode instantly, but something strange happened instead. "Admiral, their shields are holding," his weapons officer reported with confusion. "That's impossible. Those platforms shouldn't be able to resist our main batteries." Zephrok leaned forward in his chair. "Increase power to maximum. Destroy those platforms." But the human defense platforms did more than just survive. They fired back with weapons that the Imperial computers didn't recognize. The energy patterns were similar to Imperial technology, but they hit harder and moved faster than anything in the Empire's database. 2 Imperial cruisers took damage from the return fire. Their shields failed after only a few hits. Something that should have been impossible against primitive weapons. "How are they doing this?" Zephrok demanded. In the underground command center, Dongmin smiled grimly as he watched his modified weapons work. Human engineers had taken Imperial technology and improved it in ways the aliens never imagined. They had removed safety limiters, increased power output, and created hybrid systems that worked better than the originals. "Their shields are designed to stop Imperial weapons," he explained to Jin'ei. "But our weapons aren't exactly Imperial anymore." The space battle continued. For hours, Earth's platforms were slowly destroyed, but they took several Imperial ships with them. This was not the easy victory Zephrok had expected. "Begin landing operations," he finally ordered. "We'll conquer this world from the ground." Thousands of Imperial dropships launched toward Earth's surface. They targeted major cities and military bases, expecting to find panicked populations and weak defenses. Instead, they found empty cities and abandoned bases. Captain Mi-kyung crouched in the ruins of Seoul, watching Imperial soldiers search empty buildings. The aliens moved in perfect formation, following procedures that had worked on 1,000 other worlds. They had no idea that humanity had spent 6 months preparing for exactly this kind of invasion. All civilians evacuated to the underground. "Shelters," she whispered into her radio. "Enemy forces are in the city center, beginning harassment operations." The Imperial soldiers were strong and well-equipped, but they were trained to fight conventional armies. They didn't know how to handle an enemy that hid in shadows and struck without warning. Mi-kyung's team used modified farming equipment as weapons. Tractors became mobile gun platforms. Crop-spraying drones carried explosives. Even simple tools became deadly in human hands. The first Imperial patrol disappeared in a cloud of smoke and debris. The second patrol found their vehicles disabled by devices that looked like simple road construction equipment. The third patrol never made it out of the landing zone. Admiral Zephrok received confused reports from his ground commanders. "Sir, the enemy is using weapons we've never seen before. Our tactical computers can't predict their movements." "What kind of weapons?" Zephrok asked. "Modified civilian equipment, sir. They're turning everyday tools into military hardware. It doesn't make sense." It made perfect sense to humanity. When faced with superior technology, humans had always found ways to improvise and adapt. They took whatever they had and made it work for their purposes. Dongmin had taught Earth's engineers a simple truth. Imperial technology was designed to fight Imperial technology. It had built-in weaknesses that could be exploited by anyone willing to think differently. Human fighters used tactics that confused Imperial battle computers. They attacked from unexpected directions, used weapons that shouldn't exist, and disappeared before the aliens could respond. Worse for the Empire, human resistance seemed to get stronger as the fighting continued. Every Imperial victory was costly, and every human defeat taught them something new about their enemy. Captain Mi Kyung's radio crackled with reports from around the world. London reports successful ambush of Imperial supply convoy. Tokyo has eliminated enemy communications outpost. Cairo requests more explosive drones. The resistance was working. Humanity wasn't trying to defeat the Imperial army in open battle. Instead, they were bleeding the invaders with 1,000 small cuts. Dr. Jin A watched the tactical displays with growing hope. They expected us to fight like everyone else they've conquered. But we're not everyone else. The Imperial invasion was supposed to be over in days. Instead, it dragged on for weeks with no clear end in sight. Sephiroth found himself fighting an enemy that refused to follow the rules of warfare. Human defenders would attack Imperial positions with modified construction equipment, then vanish into underground tunnels before reinforcements arrived. They used the planet's own geography against the invaders, turning familiar terrain into a deadly maze. "Sir," his intelligence officer reported, "we've identified some of their weapons. They're using our own technology, but they've modified it in ways our engineers say shouldn't be possible." Sephiroth studied the technical reports with growing unease. The humans had taken Imperial designs and somehow made them work better. This was unprecedented in galactic history. Meanwhile, in hidden factories around the world, human engineers worked around the clock. They weren't just defending Earth anymore. They were building something new, something that would surprise the Empire even more than the Resistance had. The siege of Earth continued, but it was becoming clear that this wouldn't be the easy conquest the Empire had planned. Humanity had turned their homeworld into a fortress, and they were learning more about Imperial technology with every passing day. Admiral Sephiroth began to wonder if he had enough ships to finish this war. For the first time in his long career, he was fighting an enemy that seemed to get stronger under pressure. He had no idea that the real surprise was still coming. 3 months into the siege of Earth, Captain Mi Kyung crawled through a drainage tunnel beneath what used to be downtown Seoul. Behind her, 5 other resistance fighters carried weapons that would have confused any Imperial engineer who saw them. The device Mi Kyung carried looked like a simple farming sprayer, but Dong Min's team had modified it to shoot a mixture that could eat through Imperial armor in seconds. Her squad mate Jin Ho had a mining drill that now fired energy bolts. Even their communication devices were built from parts taken from destroyed Imperial equipment. "Imperial patrol approaching the marketplace," whispered Young Su through the radio. 12 soldiers, standard formation." Mi Kyung smiled. Standard formation meant the aliens were still following their rulebook. After months of fighting, they hadn't learned that their tactics didn't work against humans. "Remember," she told her team, "hit fast and disappear. We're not trying to win this fight. We're trying to teach them that nowhere is safe." The attack lasted exactly 90 seconds. The Imperial patrol was eliminated using weapons they couldn't identify, tactics their computers couldn't predict, and escape routes that shouldn't have existed. By the time reinforcements arrived, the humans had vanished. In space above Earth, Admiral Sephiroth was having the worst months of his military career. His invasion force was slowly being worn down by an enemy that refused to fight fair. Worse, his intelligence reports made no sense. "Show me the weapons analysis again," he ordered his science officer. The holographic display showed dozens of captured human devices. Each one was built from a mixture of Imperial technology, Earth materials, and human modifications that violated basic engineering principles. "This shouldn't work," the science officer explained, pointing at a human rifle. "They've combined 3 different power systems that are completely incompatible. The weapon should explode when fired." "But it doesn't explode?" "No, sir. Somehow it works better than our standard infantry weapons. Our shields can't stop it properly because it uses energy frequencies we've never seen before. Admiral Zephrok felt a cold chill in his scaled hide. In 3,000 years of galactic conquest, the Empire had never faced an enemy that improved their weapons during battle. Most species used the same equipment throughout a war. Humans seemed to invent new weapons every week. Deep in Earth's hidden factories, Dongmin was working on his greatest project yet. The secret shipyard built inside a hollowed-out mountain was finally ready to reveal its creation. "Final systems check complete," reported his assistant, Sung Min. "All modifications are working within acceptable parameters." Dongmin looked at the ship with pride and worry. It was built using Imperial technology as a base, but human engineering had changed almost everything. The result was something that shouldn't be able to fly, fight, or even exist according to galactic science. "Send word to Dr. Jin A," he said. "The fleet is ready for testing." The first human counterattack caught the Imperial blockade completely by surprise. What appeared on sensors to be a small cargo ship suddenly launched a spread of missiles that hit harder than Imperial torpedo tubes. When the aliens fired back, their target revealed energy shields that bent space in impossible ways. "What am I looking at?" Admiral Zephrok demanded as his sensor operators struggled to track the human vessel. "Unknown, sir. The ship's mass readings keep changing. Its energy output doesn't match its apparent size. Our computers can't get a consistent reading on anything." The human ship moved through the Imperial formation like water flowing around rocks. It struck hard at weak points, then disappeared before the aliens could respond. When it finally retreated, it left 3 Imperial cruisers damaged and the entire fleet confused. Captain Wu Jin commanded the prototype ship from a bridge that looked like no other vessel in the galaxy. Human engineers had abandoned the Empire's obsession with redundancy and uniformity. Instead, every system was designed to adapt and change based on battle conditions. "Weapons reconfigured for armor penetration," reported his gunner, Jae Sung. "Shields shifted to frequency rotation mode." "Excellent. Target their flagship and prepare for close attack run." The Imperial crew of the Eternal Dominion watched in disbelief as the small human ship flew directly toward their massive vessel. Admiral Zephrok ordered all weapons to fire, confident that nothing could survive such concentrated firepower. The human ship twisted through the energy barrage like a dancer avoiding raindrops. Its shields flickered and changed color as they adapted to different weapon types. When it was close enough, it fired a single shot that somehow punched through the Imperial flagship's main armor. "Impossible," whispered Zephrok's weapons officer. "Their projectile used our own shield frequency against us. How did they know our exact settings?" "They knew because human ships were designed to learn. Every sensor reading, every energy scan, every interaction with Imperial technology was analyzed and used to improve their own systems. The longer the battle lasted, the more dangerous human ships became. Within days, more human vessels appeared. Each one was different from the others. Some were built for speed and hit-and-run attacks. Others were slow but incredibly tough. A few seemed to phase in and out of normal space. The Imperial fleet had been designed to fight other Imperial fleets. Every ship followed the same basic design principles. Their tactics were standardized across the galaxy. This uniformity had been their strength for millennia. Against humans, it became their weakness. Captain Mi Kyung received new orders through the Resistance Network. "All ground units prepare for Phase 2 operations. Space support is now available. For the first time since the invasion began, human fighters on the ground had backup from above. Small human ships began appearing in atmosphere, providing close air support with weapons that confused Imperial air defenses. The ship that helped Meek Young's team looked like a flying construction vehicle, because that's exactly what it used to be. Human engineers had taken a building crane and turned it into a gunship. The Imperial computers had no idea how to classify it. Their aerial support doesn't match any known aircraft design, reported an Imperial ground commander. We can't predict their flight patterns or weapons capabilities. Admiral Zephrok realized he was facing something unprecedented in galactic history, an enemy that innovated faster than he could adapt. Every time his forces developed a countermeasure for human tactics, the humans had already moved on to something new. Worse, captured Imperial equipment was being turned against his own forces. Human engineers seemed capable of improving any technology they got their hands on. They took Imperial designs and made them work better than the originals. "Sir," his communications officer reported, "we're receiving messages from the Galactic capital. They want status reports on the conquest." Zephrok looked at his tactical display. Half his fleet was damaged or destroyed. His ground forces controlled almost nothing. The enemy was growing stronger every day. "Tell them the conquest is proceeding as planned," he lied. But he knew the truth. This was no longer an Imperial conquest. This was a war, and the Empire was losing. On Earth, Dr. Jin-A watched the tactical displays with growing confidence. Humanity had done more than survive the Imperial attack. They had learned from it, adapted to it, and begun to turn it around. Phase 3. Preparations are complete, Dongmin reported. The main fleet is ready. Jin-A nodded. Then it's time to show the galaxy what humans can really do. The siege of Earth was about to become something much bigger. Something that would shake the Empire to its foundations. The massive shape that emerged from Earth's shadow was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Admiral Zephrok stared at his screens, trying to understand what his sensors were telling him. "Sir, the computer systems are giving conflicting readings," his sensor officer reported with confusion. "The ship appears to be simultaneously solid and not solid. Its mass keeps changing." The vessel was enormous, dwarfing even Imperial dreadnoughts, but it moved with impossible grace. Its hull seemed to shift and flow like liquid metal. Energy patterns danced across its surface in ways that hurt the eyes to watch. "What is that thing?" Zephrok whispered. Captain Wu Jin stood on the bridge of the Indomitable Spirit, humanity's masterpiece of impossible engineering. Around him, his crew worked at stations that looked more like art installations than military equipment. Every surface curved and flowed, with displays that showed information in 3 dimensions. "All systems showing green," reported his engineer, Kyung-ho. "Adaptive armor is responding normally. Weapons configurations are stable in all 17 modes." Wu Jin nodded, though he still found it hard to believe the ship actually worked. Dongmin and his team had built something that violated every rule of spacecraft design. They had combined Imperial technology with human creativity to create something entirely new. The ship's hull was made from a material that existed in multiple phases at once. It was solid enough to stop weapons, but could phase partially out of normal space to avoid damage. The weapon systems could reconfigure themselves during battle, switching between energy beams, projectile weapons, and exotic forces that the Empire had no names for. Most importantly, the ship learned from every attack. Its artificial intelligence was unlike anything the Empire had ever built. Instead of following programmed responses, it adapted and evolved in real time. "Imperial fleet is moving to attack formation," reported Navigator So-min, who had been rescued from the captured New Sol. "All major ships are targeting us." "Let them come," Wu Jin said calmly. "Show them what human engineering can do." Admiral Zephrok ordered his entire fleet to concentrate fire on the impossible human ship. 500 Imperial vessels unleashed everything they had. Energy beams, missiles, and exotic weapons filled space with deadly light. The indomitable Spirit danced through the barrage like a fish swimming through rain. Its adaptive armor shifted color and texture, absorbing some attacks and deflecting others. When weapons did hit, the ship's hull simply reformed around the damage points. "Impossible!" breathed Zephrok's science officer. "Their armor is self-repairing, but that technology doesn't exist." "It does now," muttered the admiral grimly. The human ship's return fire was devastating. Its weapons seemed to know exactly where to hit each Imperial vessel for maximum effect. Shields that had protected the Empire's ships for millennia crumpled like paper. Advanced armor plating melted under weapons that shouldn't exist. Worse, the human weapons were learning. Each shot was more effective than the last as the ship's systems analyzed Imperial defenses and adapted to overcome them. "Sir, they're targeting our command system specifically," reported the tactical officer. "How do they know our ship layouts?" Admiral Zephrok realized with growing horror that the human ship was reading his fleet's computer systems during the battle. Every Imperial vessel was connected to the others through tactical networks. The humans had somehow gained access to those networks and were using them against the fleet. Captain Wu Jin watched his displays as the indomitable Spirit systems processed thousands of data streams every second. The ship wasn't just fighting the Imperial fleet. It was learning everything about Imperial technology and sharing that knowledge with other human vessels. "Enemy flagship is attempting to retreat," reported his weapons officer, Min Su. "Should we pursue?" "No," Wu Jin decided. "Let them run. The lesson is more important than the victory." The Battle of Earth's Shadow lasted only 3 hours, but its effects would echo across the galaxy for generations. The Imperial fleet, which had never retreated from any battle, fled from a single human ship. The indomitable Spirit had proven that Imperial technology was not superior, it was just different. Human engineers had taken the same basic principles and improved them beyond recognition. But the ship was more than just a weapon. It was a symbol of human potential. Every alien species in the galaxy would soon hear about the impossible vessel that had driven off the mighty Imperial fleet. In the aftermath of the battle, Admiral Zephrok sent urgent messages to the Imperial capital. His reports described technology that shouldn't exist, tactics that violated all known military doctrine, and an enemy that seemed to improve under pressure. "Request immediate reinforcements," he transmitted. "The humans are not a primitive species. They are something we have never encountered before." On Earth, crowds gathered in the underground shelters to watch recordings of the battle. For the first time since the invasion began, people dared to hope that they might actually win this war. Dr. Jin A stood with Dong Min in the command center, watching as more human ships joined the indomitable Spirit in orbit. Each vessel was unique, built according to different theories and approaches to space combat. "The Empire expected us to copy their designs," she said. "Instead, we showed them that their way isn't the only way." Dong Min nodded, his eyes bright with exhaustion and triumph. "This is just the beginning. Every ship we build teaches us something new. Every battle makes us stronger." The Imperial prisoners, including Captain Hyun-woo from the original New Seoul, were brought aboard the indomitable Spirit. Admiral Zephrok himself was given a tour of the impossible ship, his scaled features twisted with confusion and fear. "Your technology violates the laws of physics," he protested as human engineers explained their adaptive systems. "No, Captain," Wu Jin replied patiently. "Your understanding of physics is limited. You've spent so long conquering others that you forgot how to innovate yourselves." The tour revealed the fundamental difference between human and imperial approaches to technology. The Empire had perfected a few designs and mass-produced them across the galaxy. Humans treated every problem as an opportunity to try something new. The ship's medical bay used healing technology that worked better than Imperial hospitals. The engines created propulsion effects that exceeded Imperial physics models. Even simple things like lighting and air circulation had been reimagined in ways that improved efficiency and comfort. "We don't just build ships," explained Chief Engineer Kyung-ho to the confused aliens. "We build ideas. Every vessel is an experiment in what's possible." Admiral Zefrock left the tour with his worldview shattered. The Empire had ruled the galaxy by being superior to everyone else, but the humans weren't trying to be superior, they were trying to be different, and different was winning. As news of the impossible warships spread through Imperial communication networks, other species began to take notice. If humans could challenge the Empire's technological supremacy, perhaps other races could as well. The indomitable spirit became more than just a ship. It became proof that the Empire was not invincible, that their way was not the only way, that innovation could triumph over tradition. Captain Wu Jin stood on his bridge, looking out at the stars beyond Earth. The ship hummed around him with the sound of impossible technology working perfectly. Soon they would take this ship beyond Earth's system. The galaxy was about to discover what human ingenuity could achieve when pushed to its limits. The siege of Earth was over. The transformation of the galaxy was about to begin. The news traveled faster than the Imperial fleet could retreat. Across thousands of worlds, alien species heard the impossible story. A single human ship had defeated the mighty Imperial fleet. In the Empire's capital city on Kethmore Prime, emergency council sessions ran day and night. Emperor Kethvar, ruler of the galaxy for 3 centuries, stood before a holographic display showing the battle footage. His ancient eyes, clouded with age but still sharp with intelligence, watched the indomitable spirit dance through Imperial weapons fire. "This cannot be real," he said to his advisors. "No species develops such technology in mere months." General Quindar, head of Imperial Intelligence, stepped forward with a datapad full of disturbing reports. "Majesty, our analysis confirms the footage is genuine. The humans have achieved something unprecedented." The Emperor's tail lashed with anger. "How is this possible? Our technology has dominated the galaxy for millennia." "That may be the problem, Majesty," Quindar said carefully. "Our latest intelligence suggests that human capabilities extend beyond their technology. They appear to be adapting biologically as well as mechanically. Meanwhile, on the outer rim worlds, alien populations watched secret recordings of the Earth battle with growing excitement. In the mining colonies of Deltara, insectoid workers whispered about the humans who had stood up to the Empire. On the agricultural worlds of the Centauri sector, farmers dreamed of freedom from Imperial taxation. The Empire had maintained control through fear and superior technology. If humans could challenge that technology, perhaps the impossible was possible. So Min, now serving as humanity's chief diplomatic officer, worked from a small ship traveling between star systems. Her mission was to make contact with other species and learn about the galactic situation. Receiving transmission from the Veltani resistance movement, her communications officer Junho reported. "They want to meet." So Min studied the star charts. The Veltani were a proud warrior species that had been conquered by the Empire 50 years ago. If they were organizing resistance movements, the situation was more serious than anyone realized. The meeting took place on a neutral asteroid in unclaimed space. So-Min found herself face-to-face with Commander Raxtar, a Veltani whose blue skin was marked with ritual scars from battles past. "Your species has done something remarkable," Raxtar said through the translation device. "For the first time in my lifetime, the Empire shows fear." "We didn't intend to start a revolution," So-Min replied honestly. "We were just defending our world." "But you have started one anyway. 17 worlds have experienced uprisings in the past month. The Empire is stretched thin, trying to maintain control." So Min realized that humanity's victory had consequences far beyond Earth. They had become a symbol of hope for oppressed species across the galaxy. Back on Earth, Dr. Ginny received reports that worried her. Imperial Intelligence Officer Quindar had been conducting detailed studies of human capabilities. The reports he was sending to the capital painted humans as something more dangerous than anyone had imagined. "They're studying our biology," she told Dongmin as they reviewed intercepted Imperial communications. "They've discovered that human crews can operate under conditions that would kill other species." Dongmin nodded grimly. "The crews of our ships regularly experience forces that would crush most aliens. We designed our vessels assuming human durability. This was another advantage humans had never considered. The Empire's ships were built to accommodate multiple species, which meant they were designed for the weakest among them. Human ships could be built assuming their crews could handle extreme conditions." Imperial Medical Officer Velshan submitted his most disturbing report yet to the capital. After examining human prisoners and studying battle recordings, he had reached terrifying conclusions about human capabilities. "The humans appear to have evolved for survival under extreme conditions," he wrote. "Their cardiovascular systems can handle gravitational forces that would render most species unconscious. Their neural adaptability allows them to process information and make decisions at speeds that approach artificial intelligence levels." But the most frightening discovery was psychological. Human crews appear to become more effective under stress, rather than less effective. This is contrary to all known biological patterns. Most species deteriorate under pressure. Humans seem to thrive on it. Emperor Kethvar read these reports with growing unease. The Empire had conquered the galaxy by being superior to everyone else. But humans weren't just technologically innovative, they were fundamentally different in ways that made them natural survivors. "What do our xenobiologists recommend?" he asked General Quindar. "Complete extermination, Majesty. They believe humans are too dangerous to be allowed to spread beyond their home system." On the frontier worlds, species that had been conquered generations ago began to remember what freedom felt like. The Zephyrian crystal miners started sabotaging Imperial equipment. The Altarian traders began smuggling weapons to resistance movements. Even the peaceful Centauri farmers stopped paying Imperial taxes. Each act of rebellion was small by itself, but together they created a crisis the Empire had never faced. They couldn't be everywhere at once, and humans had proven that Imperial technology wasn't invincible. So Min's diplomatic mission expanded as more species requested contact with humanity. She found herself coordinating not just with resistance movements, but with entire planetary governments that were quietly preparing to declare independence. "The situation is accelerating beyond our control," she reported to Earth. "We may have triggered something much larger than we intended." Dr. Jin-A understood the implications. Humanity had wanted to survive Imperial conquest. Instead, they had become the catalyst for the collapse of galactic civilization as it existed. Are we prepared for what comes next? Dongmin asked during one of their strategy meetings. We have to be, Jinny replied, because there's no going back now. The Empire's response was predictable but devastating. Emperor Kethvar ordered massive military deployments to rebellious worlds. The Imperial fleet, which had been concentrated at Earth, was scattered across the galaxy trying to maintain control. This created opportunities that human strategists quickly recognized. Captain Wu Jin and the Indomitable Spirit began appearing at Imperial supply lines, striking fast and disappearing before reinforcements could arrive. Each attack demonstrated human capabilities to new alien audiences. Species that had never imagined challenging the Empire watched human ships defeat Imperial vessels with apparent ease. We're not just fighting a war anymore, Wu Jin reported from his latest mission. We're teaching the galaxy that the Empire can be beaten. The psychological impact was enormous. The Empire had maintained control through the belief that resistance was futile. Humans had shattered that belief with their impossible technology and stubborn refusal to surrender. In the Imperial capital, emergency sessions grew more desperate. Reports flooded in from across the galaxy describing uprisings, rebellions, and outright declarations of independence. The mighty Empire was beginning to fragment. How many ships do we need to recall from the frontier? Emperor Kethvar asked his military advisors. All of them, Majesty, General Quindar replied grimly. And it still might not be enough. The humans had done more than defend their homeworld. They had proven that the Empire's greatest strength, its uniformity and predictability, was also its greatest weakness. In a galaxy full of diverse species with different approaches to technology and warfare, rigid Imperial doctrine was a liability. As reports continued to pour in from across the galaxy, Emperor Kethvar faced a terrible truth. The humans hadn't just won a battle. They had started a revolution that might destroy everything the Empire had built. The age of Imperial dominance was ending. What would replace it remained to be seen. Taeho stood in the construction bay of Earth's largest orbital shipyard, watching the final preparations for humanity's greatest project. Around him, dozens of ships floated in various stages of completion. Each one was different from the others, and all of them were impossible according to Imperial engineering principles. Batch 7 is ready for launch, reported his assistant Yunjin. That brings our total fleet to 237 vessels. Taeho nodded, still amazed by what they had accomplished. In less than a year, humanity had gone from having one exploration ship to commanding a fleet that could challenge the Empire. More importantly, every ship in that fleet represented a different approach to space warfare. The vessel nearest to him looked like a crystalline flower made of metal and energy. Its hull was designed to split apart during battle, turning one ship into dozens of smaller fighters. Next to it floated a ship that resembled a giant metallic whale, its hull rippling with adaptive armor that could become completely fluid when needed. The diversity is our strength, Taeho said to himself, remembering Dr. Jin-A's words. The Empire expects uniformity. We give them chaos. Captain Hyan-Su commanded one of the strangest vessels in the human fleet. The ship looked like a collection of spare parts held together by force fields, because that's exactly what it was. Human engineers had learned to build functional warships from whatever materials they could find. All squadrons report ready for jump, his navigator, Bo Ram, announced from her station. Fleet disposition is unusual. Hyun-Soo smiled at the understatement. His squadron included ships built from asteroid mining equipment, modified passenger liners, converted cargo haulers, and vessels that defied classification entirely. The Imperial fleet approaching Earth expected to fight a conventional space navy. Instead, they would face something that had never existed before. Admiral Zephrok studied the sensor readings from his retreating fleet with growing confusion. The reports made no sense. According to his scouts, Earth now had more ships than the Empire had sent to conquer it. But where had they come from? "Sir, the human fleet composition is irregular," his intelligence officer reported. "We count over 200 vessels, but no two of them are alike. Our tactical computers cannot develop a unified battle plan." "Show me the classifications," Zephrok demanded. The holographic display, filled with ship silhouettes, each one marked with question marks where the Imperial computer should have listed weapons, defenses, and capabilities. The system had no category for most of the human vessels. "This one appears to be a cargo hauler modified for combat," the officer explained, pointing at a bulky ship with asymmetrical weapon mounts. "This one looks like a research vessel armed with experimental weapons. And this one," he paused. "We have no idea what this one is supposed to do." The ship in question looked like a sphere covered in crystalline spikes. It had no visible engines, no obvious weapons, and energy readings that fluctuated randomly. The Imperial computer classified it as unknown technology, potentially dangerous. Back on Earth, Dr. Jin-A watched the final preparations with mixed emotions. The fleet that was about to launch represented humanity's best hope for survival, but it also meant taking the war beyond Earth's system for the first time. "Are you sure about this strategy?" Dongmin asked as they reviewed the battle plans. "We're spreading our forces across multiple star systems." "The Empire expects us to defend Earth," Jin-A replied. "Instead, we're going to force them to defend everything. They can't protect their entire empire with their remaining ships." The human strategy was revolutionary in its simplicity. Instead of trying to match the Empire's massive fleets, humanity would attack their supply lines, communication networks, and isolated outposts. They would force the Empire to spread their forces thin while human ships concentrated on specific targets. Captain Hyun-Soo's squadron was assigned to the Kepler sector, where Imperial supply convoys carried resources from conquered worlds to the core systems. Their job was to disrupt those supply lines using ships that shouldn't be able to fight anything. "Remember," he told his squadron commanders during the final briefing, "we're not trying to destroy every Imperial ship we meet. We're trying to make them afraid to travel alone." The first attack came 3 days after the human fleet left Earth's system. An Imperial supply convoy consisting of 12 cargo ships and 6 escorts encountered Captain Hyun-Soo's squadron near a gas giant. The Imperial escort commander, Captain Velmon, initially dismissed the approaching ships as civilian vessels that had strayed into a military zone. His sensors showed a collection of modified cargo haulers, mining ships, and construction vehicles. "Civilian fleet, you are in violation of Imperial space," he transmitted. "Withdraw immediately or face destruction." The response came in the form of weapons fire from directions that shouldn't have been possible. The ship that looked like a cargo hauler revealed hidden missile launchers. The mining vessel fired energy beams that cut through Imperial shields like paper. The construction ship deployed devices that jammed Imperial communications and sensors. "Where did those weapons come from?" Velmon demanded, as his flagship shook under unexpected fire. His weapons officer worked frantically at his controls. "Sir, their weapon signatures don't match anything in our database. The computer doesn't know how to target them effectively. The battle lasted only minutes. The Imperial escorts were disabled or destroyed by weapons they couldn't identify, fired from ships they couldn't properly target. The supply convoy was captured intact, along with its cargo of rare metals and advanced components. More importantly, the survivors would carry word of the encounter back to Imperial Command. Human ships were no longer confined to Earth's system. They were hunting Imperial vessels throughout the galaxy. Similar attacks occurred across dozens of star systems over the following weeks. Human squadrons appeared without warning, struck hard at Imperial targets, and vanished before reinforcements could arrive. Each attack used different tactics and different ship types. The psychological effect was devastating to Imperial morale. Supply ship captains requested larger escorts. Communications officers reported strange signals that might be human ships. Even routine patrols became exercises in paranoia. "They're everywhere and nowhere," reported one Imperial commander. "We never see the same ship design twice. Our tactical databases are useless against enemies we can't classify." Emperor Kethvar studied the reports with growing alarm. The humans had done something unprecedented in galactic history. They had created a fleet without a standard design philosophy. Every ship was unique, which meant the Empire couldn't develop universal countermeasures. "How do we fight an enemy that refuses to follow patterns?" he asked his military advisors. General Quindar had no good answer. "We could recall all frontier fleets and concentrate our forces, Majesty, but that would mean abandoning large sections of the Empire. And if we spread our ships thin to protect everything, then the humans will concentrate their forces against our weakest points. They've proven very good at finding and exploiting weaknesses. The Empire faced an impossible choice. They could protect their core worlds by abandoning the frontier, or they could try to protect everything and leave their entire fleet vulnerable to human tactics." Captain Hyun-Soo's squadron had grown from 12 ships to 37 as they captured Imperial vessels and converted them to human use. Each captured ship was modified according to human engineering principles, creating even more unique vessel types. "Imperial destroyer approaching," reported his sensor officer, Min Jung. "Single ship, probably investigating our last attack." Hyun-Soo smiled. Imperial ships still traveled in predictable patterns, following standard operating procedures. Human ships had learned to exploit those patterns. "Deploy the jellyfish protocol," he ordered. 3 of his ships suddenly split apart into dozens of smaller components, surrounding the Imperial destroyer like a swarm of metallic insects. The confused aliens found themselves targeted by weapons, coming from every direction, fired by objects too small to effectively target. The captured destroyer became the 38th ship in Hyun-Soo's growing squadron. Its crew would be treated well and eventually released, but not before they had seen human technology up close. Their reports would spread fear throughout the Imperial fleet. As news of human fleet actions reached Earth, Dr. Jin-A realized their strategy was working better than expected. The Empire was being forced to fight a type of war they had never encountered before. "They're pulling ships back from the frontier worlds," Dongmin reported. 3 rebellious systems have declared independence while their Imperial garrisons were withdrawn. The human fleet was accomplishing its mission without winning a single major battle. By forcing the Empire to react to attacks across the galaxy, they were creating opportunities for other species to break free from Imperial control. But the greatest test was still coming. Soon, the Empire would be forced to choose between protecting their core worlds and maintaining control of their outer territories. Either choice would change the balance of power in the galaxy forever. The emergency session in the imperial capital had been running for 18 hours without break. Emperor Kethvar sat on his ancient throne, watching holographic displays show red marks spreading across the galactic map like a disease. Each red mark represented a system in open rebellion against the Empire. 47 systems have declared independence, General Quindar reported, his voice hoarse from hours of briefing. Another 63 are showing signs of unrest. We estimate we've lost control of 15% of Imperial territory. The numbers were staggering. In 3,000 years of galactic dominance, the Empire had never faced such widespread rebellion. And it was all because of one species that most aliens had never heard of 6 months ago. "What about our fleet strength?" the Emperor asked. "Scattered across the galaxy trying to contain the uprisings. We have requests for reinforcements from over 200 sectors. We cannot be everywhere at once." On the frontier world of Nexara, Captain Mi Kyung stood in a room that had been an Imperial government building that morning. Now it served as the headquarters for the newly declared Free Republic of Nexara. Around her, alien species that had been enemies for generations worked together to plan their defense against Imperial retaliation. "The humans have sent technical advisors," reported Counselor Thexra, a tall insectoid whose species had been conquered by the Empire decades ago. "They're teaching us to modify our equipment using their techniques." Mi Kyung nodded as she studied the defense plans. Humanity's greatest gift to the rebellion wasn't ships or weapons, it was knowledge. Human engineers were sharing their modification techniques with any species willing to fight the Empire. "Remember," she told the mixed group of rebels, "we don't need to match Imperial technology. We just need to make it unpredictable, modify everything, change tactics constantly, make them afraid to attack us because they don't know what we'll do." The rebellion was spreading faster than the Empire could contain it. Species that had accepted Imperial rule for generations suddenly remembered what freedom meant, and humanity was there to help them achieve it. Dr. Jinne received reports from human technical teams across the galaxy. What she learned worried and amazed her in equal measure. "The modifications are working better than we expected," reported Engineer Sang Ho via quantum communication from the Arcturus sector. "The Veltani warriors have turned their civilian mining equipment into weapons that can punch through Imperial armor. The Zephyrians are using their crystal-growing technology to create new types of shields, but the reports also carried warnings. The Empire is getting desperate. They're pulling veteran units from the core worlds. When they counterattack, it's going to be brutal." The Empire's response came sooner than expected. Emperor Kethvar had made his choice. He would sacrifice the outer territories to protect the core systems. Elite Imperial Guard units, troops that had never known defeat, were deployed to crush the most dangerous rebellions. The first target was Deltara Prime, a mining world where the insectoid population had declared independence and successfully fought off 3 Imperial retaliation fleets. The Emperor sent the 1st Imperial Guard Division, 10,000 of the Empire's best soldiers, led by General Korth Von. The Battle of Deltara Prime lasted 6 hours and shocked the galaxy. The rebellious miners, using modified industrial equipment and human tactical advice, held their ground against the Empire's elite forces. When the dust settled, General Korth Von was dead and his division was in full retreat. "Impossible," whispered Emperor Kethvar as he read the battle reports. "The 1st Division has never been defeated. The secret was human tactical innovation combined with alien ingenuity. The Deltaran rebels hadn't tried to fight like Imperial forces. Instead, They had used their knowledge of their own world to create advantages the Empire couldn't counter. Mining tunnels became defensive positions. Industrial chemicals became weapons. Ore processing equipment became artillery. The Imperial forces found themselves fighting an enemy that used the planet itself as a weapon. But the most disturbing part of the report was what happened to captured Imperial equipment. The rebels had somehow improved it during the battle, turning Imperial weapons against their former owners with greater effectiveness than the originals. So Min, now coordinating diplomatic relations with dozens of rebel movements, received an urgent message from the Centauri Alliance. The peaceful farmers who had seemed like the least likely rebels were requesting immediate assistance. "The Empire is sending a punishment fleet to Centauri 4, the message explained. 300 ships led by Admiral Vorgath. They plan to make an example of us." So Min studied the tactical situation with growing concern. The Centauri were peaceful, people with no military tradition. Even with human technical assistance, they couldn't hope to fight off such a massive fleet. "We need to help them," she told her staff during an emergency planning session. "If the Empire succeeds in crushing Centauri 4, it will terrify other rebel movements." The solution came from an unexpected source. Captain Wu Jin and the Indomitable Spirit had been monitoring Imperial communications. They had discovered something that could change the entire war. "The Imperial fleet heading to Centauri 4 is using outdated encryption," Wu Jin reported. "Our computer systems have broken their codes. We know their battle plans, their ship positions, even their supply schedules. More importantly, human technical teams had been working with dozens of rebel movements. Each group had learned different aspects of human modification techniques. If they could coordinate their efforts—" "What are you suggesting?" Dr. Jin A asked during the strategy conference. "A joint operation," Wu Jin replied. "Human ships, rebel fleets, and modified Imperial equipment working together. We show the galaxy that the rebellion isn't just isolated uprisings, it's a coordinated movement." The plan was ambitious beyond anything humanity had attempted. Ships from 12 different rebel movements would converge on Centauri 4. Each fleet would use different modification techniques, creating a combined force unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Admiral Vorgath approached Centauri 4 with supreme confidence. His fleet of 300 ships was the largest Imperial force deployed since the original invasion of Earth. The peaceful farmers below couldn't possibly resist such overwhelming power. "Begin orbital bombardment," he ordered, as his fleet took position around the agricultural world. "Make this quick and decisive." The first surprise came when his fleet's sensors detected other ships approaching Centauri 4. Lots of other ships. The rebels had somehow assembled a fleet nearly as large as his own. "Sir, we're detecting approximately 200 vessels of unknown configuration," his sensor officer reported. "Energy signatures are inconsistent with any known technology." The second surprise came when the rebel fleet opened fire. Every ship used different weapons, different tactics, different approaches to space combat. The Imperial fleet's tactical computers, designed to fight other Imperial fleets, couldn't cope with such diversity. Some rebel ships phased in and out of normal space. Others split apart into swarms of smaller fighters. A few seemed to rebuild themselves during combat, adapting to Imperial weapons in real time. Leading the rebel fleet was the Indomitable Spirit, its impossible technology coordinating the diverse forces into a unified attack. Captain Wu Jin found himself commanding not just a ship, but an alliance of species united by their desire for freedom. "All rebel squadrons, implement Protocol Chaos," he broadcast on the coordination frequency. Rebel fleets suddenly abandoned all conventional tactics. Ships began attacking from impossible angles, using weapons that changed configuration during battle, and employing strategies that seemed to make no sense until they revealed devastating effectiveness. Admiral Vorgath watched his invincible fleet crumble under attacks he couldn't understand or counter. Ships that had conquered 100 worlds were being destroyed by modified farming equipment and mining vessels. "Request immediate reinforcements," he transmitted to Imperial Command. "The rebels have technology we cannot identify or defeat," but there were no reinforcements available. The Empire's fleet was scattered across the galaxy, trying to contain uprisings on dozens of worlds. The rebellion had become too large and too coordinated for the Empire to fight effectively. Emperor Kethvar received the reports from Centauri IV with growing despair. The rebels hadn't just won a battle, they had proven that the Empire could be defeated anywhere, by anyone willing to think differently. "How many more fleets like this can they assemble?" he asked General Quindar. "Unknown, Majesty. The humans seem to be teaching their techniques to every species that will listen. Each rebel movement is becoming more dangerous over time." The Empire faced a terrible truth. The rigid hierarchy and standardized technology that had made them invincible for millennia had become their greatest weakness. In a galaxy full of diverse species with different approaches to warfare, imperial uniformity was a fatal flaw. The rebellion was no longer about individual worlds seeking independence. It had become a galaxy-wide movement that threatened the very foundations of imperial civilization. And at the heart of it all were the humans, the species that had taught the galaxy that there was more than one way to fight a war. The massive fleet that assembled at the edge of Imperial core space was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Ships from hundreds of different worlds floated together in formations that defied every principle of military organization. Human vessels worked alongside modified Imperial ships, rebel craft built from industrial equipment, and alien designs that incorporated technologies from dozens of different species. Captain Wu Jin stood on the bridge of the Indomitable Spirit, looking at displays that showed the most diverse military force in galactic history. Each ship represented a different approach to the same basic problem: how to build something that could fight effectively in space. "Final fleet count is 847 vessels," reported his communications officer, Da Yun. Representatives from 63 different species and star systems. The numbers were staggering, but more important was what they represented. For the first time in 3,000 years, the Empire faced an enemy that matched their fleet strength while completely exceeding their tactical diversity. Emperor Kethvar stood in his war room on the Imperial capital world, surrounded by advisors who had run out of solutions. The holographic displays showed the massive rebel fleet approaching his core systems. Behind them, red indicators marked dozens of worlds that had already declared independence. "We have 700 ships available for the defense of the core worlds," General Quindar reported. "All our best units, all our most advanced technology." "Will it be enough?" the Emperor asked, though he already suspected the answer. "Unknown, Majesty. The rebels aren't following any tactical doctrine we understand. Our computer simulations cannot predict the outcome of the battle." Dr. Jin A watched the final preparations from Earth's command center. The fleet approaching the Imperial capital represented humanity's greatest gamble. They weren't trying to destroy the Empire, they were trying to transform it. "Are you sure about this strategy?" Dongmin asked as they reviewed the battle plans one final time. "If we fail here, the Empire will recover and crush every rebel world." "We won't fail," Jin-A replied with more confidence than she felt. "Because we're not really fighting a war anymore. We're demonstrating a new way of thinking. The plan was audacious in its scope. Instead of trying to defeat the Imperial fleet through superior firepower, the Rebel Alliance would prove that cooperation was stronger than domination. Every ship in their fleet had been modified using techniques shared between different species. Every tactic they would use had been developed through collaboration rather than conquest. The Battle of Kethmore Prime began when the Rebel fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Imperial capital system. Admiral Vorgath, who had survived the disaster at Centauri 4, commanded the Imperial Defense Force from his flagship. "All ships, prepare for standard engagement," he ordered. "Deploy battle line formation." It was exactly what the rebels expected. The Imperial fleet formed up in the same patterns they had used for millennia, following the same tactical doctrines that had conquered the galaxy. They were magnificent and powerful and completely predictable. Captain Wu Jin smiled as he watched the Imperial formation take shape. All Alliance ships implement the Harmony Protocol. What happened next would be studied by military historians for generations. The Rebel fleet didn't form battle lines or follow conventional attack patterns. Instead, they moved like a living organism, with each ship supporting the others in ways that seemed choreographed but were actually spontaneous. Human ships provided technological coordination, linking different alien technologies into unified systems. Veltani warships used their cultural knowledge of honor combat to protect weaker vessels. Zephyrian crystal ships created energy webs that amplified the weapons of nearby allies. The Imperial fleet found itself fighting not 800 individual ships, but a single entity that adapted and evolved as the battle progressed. When they concentrated fire on one section, other parts of the Rebel fleet would shift to compensate. When they tried to exploit apparent weaknesses, those weaknesses would transform into strengths. "This is impossible," Admiral Vorgath muttered as he watched his tactical displays. "They're coordinating too perfectly. No fleet can maintain such precise cooperation during combat." But the Rebel fleet wasn't trying to maintain precision. They were embracing chaos and turning it into an advantage. Each species contributed their own unique approaches to warfare, creating combinations that the Imperial computers couldn't analyze or predict. The turning point came when Captain Wu Jin made a decision that shocked both sides of the battle. Instead of pressing their advantage, he opened communication channels to the Imperial fleet. "Admiral Vorgath," he transmitted, "we want to talk." The Imperial Admiral stared at his communications display in confusion. In the middle of the largest space battle in galactic history, the enemy wanted to negotiate? "This is some kind of trick," he told his staff. "Sir," his sensor officer reported, "the Rebel fleet has stopped attacking. They're maintaining position but not firing." Emperor Kethavar watched the battle feed with growing bewilderment. The rebels had been winning. Their unconventional tactics were proving devastatingly effective against Imperial doctrine. Why would they stop now? The answer came in a transmission, broadcast on all frequencies across the galaxy. Captain Hyunwoo, the human officer whose peaceful mission had started this entire conflict, appeared on every screen in Imperial space. "People of the galaxy," he began, "we didn't come here to destroy the Empire. We came to change it." What followed was not a demand for surrender, but an offer of partnership. The rebels didn't want to replace the Empire with their own version of galactic domination. They wanted to create something entirely new, a galactic community based on cooperation rather than conquest. "Every species has something unique to contribute," Hyunwoo explained. "The Empire's greatest mistake was thinking that uniformity was strength. We've proven that diversity is stronger. On the bridge of his flagship, Admiral Vorgath found himself facing an impossible choice. He could continue the battle and probably lose, or he could listen to what the rebels were offering. "Sir," his science officer reported quietly, "I've been analyzing the rebel fleet's technology. Some of their modifications could improve our own ships by 30% or more." That was the moment when Admiral Vorgath understood what the humans had really done. They hadn't just defeated Imperial technology, they had improved it. Every ship they captured, every system they modified, every technique they shared made the galaxy's technology better. The ceasefire that followed lasted 3 days, while representatives from hundreds of worlds negotiated the future of galactic civilization. Captain Hyun Woo, the peaceful explorer who had accidentally started a war, found himself serving as humanity's chief diplomatic representative. The agreement they reached would have been impossible to imagine when the conflict began. The Empire would not be destroyed or conquered. Instead, it would be transformed into something new. A galactic federation where each species contributed their unique strengths to the common good. Emperor Kethvar, ruler of the galaxy for 3 centuries, made the hardest decision of his long life. He would step down from absolute power and become the first elected leader of the new galactic government. "The humans have taught us something important," he announced to the galaxy. "Strength comes not from controlling others, but from working with them." 6 months later, Captain Wu Jin stood in a shipyard that would have been impossible under the old empire. Human engineers worked alongside Veltani warriors, Zephyrian crystal growers, and even former Imperial scientists. Together, they were building ships that combined the best ideas from dozens of different species. The vessel taking shape in front of them was neither human nor imperial nor any single species design. It was something new, a ship that could only exist in a galaxy where different approaches to technology were seen as strengths rather than threats. "It's beautiful," said Admiral Vorgath, who now served as the Federation's military coordinator, "and completely impossible according to everything I was taught." Wu Jin smiled. "That's what makes it perfect." The ship was a symbol of what the galaxy had become. Not uniform, not predictable, but diverse and innovative and stronger because of it. Each new vessel built in Federation shipyards was unique, representing the collaborative effort of multiple species working toward common goals. Dr. Jin A., now serving as the Federation's chief science advisor, watched the launch of the new ship with satisfaction. Humanity had set out to explore the stars and find friends among the galaxies. They had found enemies instead. But in defeating those enemies, they had created the friends they had originally sought. "What's next?" Dongmin asked, as they watched the impossible ship take its first flight. "Everything," Ginny replied. "We've proven that cooperation is stronger than conquest. Now we get to see what the galaxy can achieve when everyone works together." The ship flew past them with grace that defied Imperial engineering principles. Its hybrid technologies working in harmony to create something greater than the sum of its parts. It was a perfect metaphor for what the galaxy had become. The war that had started with a mistranslated first contact message was over. The age of galactic cooperation had begun, and somewhere in